Hi, I'm Dr. Ilene Winokur, and I'd like to welcome you to Journey to Belonging in our classrooms for the Learning Revolution, Emergency, Home Learning, and More Summit. I'm delighted to be here with you today to talk to you a little bit more about belonging, about how important it is that we all feel like we belong, and how more important it is for our students to feel like they belong in order for them to learn. And what is belonging? I'll be talking about that today. And why is it important to me? What started me on my own journey to belonging? Well, I have been, before COVID, of course, to a number of international conferences, presented and attended. And many people asked me when they found out that I have lived in Kuwait since 1984, moved here from Buffalo, New York, where I grew up, and get homesick on either side of the ocean. They wondered and asked me, how do I feel so comfortable in a place that, initially at least, was so different from the place I had grown up in? And the more I thought about it and the more I researched, the more I realized that the reason I feel so comfortable in both places and miss each one of them wherever I'm not is because I feel I belong in both places. And so that brought me to learning a lot more about belonging, what it is, and some of that I'm going to be talking to you today about. And why is that so important for our students and for ourselves? Well, we know that belonging is a physiological need, a psychological need. It's a need that we have before we can learn, before we can have healthy relationships. And it's on Maslow's hierarchy of needs to begin with. So let me start by sharing with you what we'll be covering today in our session. The session objectives are, as I mentioned, let's talk a little bit about what is belonging, because not that there are misunderstandings or misconceptions about belonging, but a lot of what we call other things have a relationship with feeling a sense of belonging. And so I'd like to put those pieces together. Sharing our story is absolutely vital. We need to be able to share our personal stories. We need to feel safe in a safe environment to be able to share our stories. And I'll talk a little bit about how we can share our stories and what we need in order to be able to share our stories. Belonging in times of stress and uncertainty, well, that certainly is right now. And belonging at any time is really, really important. But belonging, especially during times like COVID-19 and everything else that's going on in the world right now, is really even more important. We talk a lot about SEL, social emotional learning. We talk a lot about mental health, all really, really important issues right now, because we are facing a lot of stress, especially educators and students, depending on what situation they're in. And we need to be able to feel a sense of belonging, but how can we do that if we're so stressed and we feel we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow or when this is all going to end? So we'll talk a little bit about that. And finally, I will give you some examples about how to create a classroom community, something that's absolutely vital in any case, but especially important for students and teachers to feel a sense of belonging. So what is belonging? In its most basic form, it's the following things that I'm going to point out. It's acceptance, but not acceptance because I'm fitting in. It's acceptance because I'm able to be who I am truly and truthfully without having to change what I believe, what I think, what I wear, who I am to others. I need to feel a safe space. So feeling safe is extremely important to be able to feel accepted. I need to feel included. Inclusion is absolutely vital. We talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but what does that really mean? Inclusion is I'm included because I'm appreciated for who I am. I may have weaknesses or areas that need improvement, but I'm included because people appreciate me for the things that I offer, the things that I contribute, how I'm able to collaborate, work with a team, and doesn't matter whether I'm black or white or a person of color. It doesn't matter whether I am gay or straight. It doesn't matter. My political opinions don't matter. People will listen to me. And so I'm included no matter what. Relationships are absolutely vital to belonging. And I think that's probably one of the most obvious things for feeling a sense of belonging is those relationships that we establish, student to student, teacher to student, student to teacher, and teacher to admin, admin to teacher. All of those relationships are absolutely vital to feeling a sense of belonging. But we also need to feel validated by being accepted. We need to feel included, not excluded. And we need to feel safe that when we share, our words are either held confidential or that at least we know people are listening and understanding what we're saying. And the final point I'm going to bring up, there's a lot more to belonging, but these are the really essential points for belonging as far as I'm concerned. Self-confidence. Now, self-confidence is part of what I call self-belonging. It's the first step, really, to belonging, to feeling a sense of belonging. Self-belonging is really important. It includes self-confidence, self-esteem, self-efficacy, that I believe that I can do what I'm setting out to do. It has to do with growth mindset, all of those things that we personally take into account for our students and ourselves, but especially for our students if we want them to feel that they can learn. The next thing I wanted to talk about is sharing our stories. So sharing our personal stories is really, really important to establishing that environment in the classroom for feeling a sense of belonging for our students. We need to be able to share about ourselves as teachers, as educators, and we need to also be able to have our students feel safe and comfortable sharing where they're from and what they believe in and what they want to know from the environment or what they want to learn in their classroom. So I have some examples that I'm going to show you. We can share all about my country. Let's say I'm a newcomer or somebody who's only been in the country for a short time, or I'm still getting adjusted. I'm an English language learner. And so, or I could share about my community, where I'm living. Maybe I was born and raised and still live, in the same area. So we can talk about our community. What is that community? It could be a town, a village, or it could be our community within the school, or it could be our classroom community. Community can be defined in many different ways. So depending on your circumstances, what you know about your students. All about me and my family is really important. This is normally something that we do at the beginning of the year after we've had our students for a while and have established some norms. But I like to bring this up because if you haven't done some of these exercises in terms of having them tell their personal stories, this can be done at any time of the year. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of the year. Now, with remote learning or hybrid learning or high flex learning, where you don't have the students in your classrooms all the time, and even if you have your students face to face in the classroom or mask to mask, as someone said to me last week, I think it's really important to get to know their families. What are their support systems? How are they supporting, communicating with their families, and so forth. And then sharing my feelings, sharing everybody's feelings. We need to share our feelings so that everybody knows that we can check in with them. We want to be able to know how they're doing that day, especially if you've gotten to know your students. For those of you in the West, many of you have been in school for 2 months. For those in other parts of the world, you probably have, some of you have been in class for 6 months. And so, but it's really important then to find out how students are feeling. On a daily basis, it's a good idea. But if you've gotten to know your students and you sense something not quite right or not quite the same from them, then it's important to ask them and have check-ins. So I'll share some ideas that I have for doing all of these things that I've just mentioned. I really like Buncee. Buncee is a great way to, because they have templates ready-made, but you can also design your own. Buncee.com is a great website, but you have your own apps, your own ed tech, and so if you use Nearpod or Seesaw or Flipgrid or other types of apps, then you can go ahead and use them in this way. But I like Buncee, and so these are some of the templates that I like to use because it's there, it's ready-made, and it's something that's attractive. And also, students can offer their own voice and choice with these templates. So all about my country, this could be about just a couple of pictures. It could be, as I said before, newcomers who are sharing where they're from with their classmates. It could be a social studies unit where you're having your students learn about the country that they're living in. It could be just about anything. It could be students who are with their families and their parents work around the world, and so they're there for only 2 or 3 years, so you could have them share with the students who are from the home country, and it establishes a feeling of safety because students feel that they can share their stories and not have to worry about being pointed out for being different, but being appreciated, which is really important for establishing a sense of belonging and community in the classroom. So this is one template. The next one is an All About Me. I like this one because it has so many different types of prompts that students can add to. This again is another Buncee template. But again, you can use whatever you're familiar with or whatever you prefer to use. I like this one, and I'll show you an example that I did because it has a lot of different things, as I said, but it also shows a lot about me personally. And so that's kind of fun to share and then to be able to talk about and appreciate between students, among students, and also to share your own as the teacher. Of course, we want to be inclusive, and so before we assign something like this, we want to make sure that students who are going to be using these templates, if you use a template or if you create your own, whatever you have on your creation, is something that students feel comfortable talking about. So either giving them options to leave things blank, or for instance, I like buying. Perhaps a student is younger, or perhaps a student is from a lower socioeconomic class. And so that would be something that you might want to be sensitive to. And again, if it's a younger grade level, perhaps my favorite book would be something that you would want to leave out, or again, it's voice and choice. So you would want to be able to make sure that the template, because there are plenty of templates on Buncee, and again, you can create your own, don't have to have these prompts. You can talk about, Buncee also has a template where you can talk about your strengths and how you use your strengths. So it doesn't have to be about you in terms of specific personal things. This is mine. So, and I also include how to pronounce my name, because sometimes my name is mispronounced. Obviously, I live in Kuwait, and we talk about my favorite food. I didn't want to share my birthday, but I did share some of the emojis and some of the stickers that Buncee has available. And I like buying gifts for other people. So this is my Buncee all about me. Again, it's really important that students share and feel validated about who they are and the kinds of things that they like and do. How I feel is really, really important also. Daily check-ins, or at least checking in when you have a sense that a student isn't feeling right or isn't behaving like they usually do. Maybe they're in a bit of a mood. Maybe you are teaching remotely and normally they have their camera on, but today they don't want to have their camera on, and you allow that. So just checking in. This is a Buncee, which is really nice because you can just, students can just grab the different emojis that are here for the different emotions and describe how they're feeling. You could have them write about it also, of course, so it gives you a bit of variety. Again, there are many different kinds of Buncee templates, and you can also use something that you're more familiar with. This is another Buncee template for checking in and finding out how students are feeling. During a specific lesson, you could ask them or have them fill this out. This is a template that you could have available all the time, and you could tell them, well, if you have any questions or concerns and you don't want to raise your hand or you don't want to ask in front of everybody else, or we're running out of time, but I want to know if you have any problems so I can get back to you later and give you feedback. So this is one that you have two ways. You can say, write down anything you'd like to ask me about. Or are you feeling worried about anything? Especially now, I think even for us as educators, as teachers, we also would love for somebody to be able to tell us, you know, why don't you share? Maybe our admin or our colleagues, maybe having them share. And this is actually something that you could share with your colleagues. And if you're an administrator, of course, you could share with your team. I also said I was going to talk about belonging in times of stress and uncertainty. So I won't go into the details, but there are reasons why we feel stressed and uncertain that are physiologically related to stimuli that comes from outside. And of course, right now, we're in the midst of something that is unprecedented, global, and as going on and on, we're on our 8th or 9th month of this. Even in Kuwait, we're still dealing with all of this. And so we need to feel safe in our space and our community. It's important that we are able to come and be ourselves. It's important that we're able to feel a sense of safety first before we can feel a sense of belonging. And the feeling safe actually is something we need to work on all year long, and it needs to be from day one. So how we react to students' responses, questions, when they're presenting themselves, talking about their stories. I have a story. I had a student when I was teaching intensive English at a college in Kuwait. And I had a student, and her reputation, well, she was repeating for the third time English, intensive English. And her reputation, according to the instructors who had her before me, was extremely disruptive, absenteeism very high. Her clothing, her dress, especially for a conservative country like Kuwait, was really on the edge, and certainly not appropriate for the university. Even in the United States, you'd probably look twice. And long eyelashes, fake eyelashes, and heavy makeup. And they told me also that I should be careful because she had tried to get an instructor before me fired. But I'm the type of instructor or teacher that assesses what I have in front of me. Every student who walks in the door has a clean slate. And so with time, I came to know that this particular student came from an extremely, extremely conservative household, mother and father, both very conservative. And I believed that she was not just rebelling, but she was really trying to find her place in this world. You would say, well, at 18 or 19 years old, she should have known her place already, but she was really lost. I took her aside many times when she was late to class. Instead of sending her out and telling her that she couldn't attend, I had her come in, but she wasn't allowed to disturb anybody. And I ensured that she felt safe talking to me about what was bothering her. And how did I do that? I made sure that I didn't embarrass her in front of the rest of the students by calling her out for being late. I would pull her aside or ask her to come to my office or speak to me after class. And when I spoke to her and told her that I wanted to see her after class, I would always couch it with, "You're not in trouble. I just need to know what's going on. I want to help. I'm here to support you." And it took a couple of months, but there was a day where she came to class and she called me over before class started. And by then she'd already been coming to class regularly. She was participating, and she actually had been attending on a regular basis. So I knew that she meant what she said. And so I met her outside the class, and I asked the class to get started with something. And she told me that she had been involved in some kind of altercation, nothing serious, but that the other student who was involved in the words or back and forth or whatever had gone to the police station and blamed her for doing such and such. And she knew that she was on the edge of being failed due to her absences because she had reached the total number that she could be absent, but she needed to go to the police station with her father so they could clear up the problem. And I took one look at her and I said to her, "You need to go with your father. Don't worry about your attendance, but what you need to do is get in touch with me afterwards, get in touch with your classmates, find out what you missed, and make sure you make up the work. And if you have any questions, to contact me." Because I knew that if I failed her, I would just be sending her the wrong message. I would just be, sort of telling her, "You're not worthy of being here." And that's the message she'd been hearing over and over again, which was why she was checking out. And she went, and from then on, she was on time and in class and ready to do her work. And when I bumped into her about a year later as a freshman or sophomore in college, because she had finished her intensive English program, she gave me a big hug and she smiled. She was not wearing the same kind of clothing or makeup that she was wearing before. and just to see her smile. And I told her, I really appreciate that you have told me that you're doing better. And so that was the way that I made this very difficult student who hadn't been successful before feel safe in my space. It's really important that we make sure that we understand our students, we know our students, so that they feel safe. We need to be present, meaning that we need to be listening and hearing them and giving feedback to them. We need to have wait time when we ask them questions, especially for English language learners and students with differing abilities. And we need to be present so that we can be mindful about how we're feeling. Checking on others, we need to check on each other. People have said, well, what if somebody doesn't check on me? What if I don't hear from that person for a really long time? Well, maybe something's going on and we don't know. So checking on that person might make that person's day. And of course, we would hope that others would check on us too. Listening deeply is really, really important. We want to make sure, as I said, to really listen, to understand, and give the kind of feedback that validates what our students and how our students are feeling and how each other is feeling. We would want that for ourselves. So, if children feel safe, they can take risks, ask questions, make mistakes, learn to trust, share their feelings, and grow. And so this is why it's so important for us to make sure that students feel safe in their environment. Now, let's say that we're not in the classroom, we're online. If a student feels uncomfortable being on camera, we need to make sure that we allow that. But we also need to make sure that our students understand if they're allowed to have their camera off, what kinds of things they need to be doing in order to participate, in order to show us that they are participating and they are part of the class. So it's not an easy way out kind of thing, but it's a way for us to show them that we do understand. For students who are having trouble with wearing a mask all the time, or if we're having a problem understanding a student, maybe an English language learner or a very quiet student, and now they're wearing a mask in the classroom and we can't hear them, we need to make sure that we make them feel safe and comfortable enough to raise their voice. Just by saying to them, I can't hear you, you need to speak up, won't necessarily make them speak up. It's possible that they have trust issues or other issues and they feel shy, or maybe they're worried about making mistakes. So feeling safe is really, really important. Nothing is more precious than being in the present moment. Being present is really, really important. We need to feel fully alive, fully aware of our surroundings, of the people around us, and we need to feel also validated by the fact that people are really listening to us. So listening and being present are really precious. Again, checking in on everybody. We want to make sure that people check in on us, but we also want to check in on them. For our students, there are ways and templates that you could have and use for checking in on your students every day. You could check in on them when they come in. I know that students who come into the classrooms before COVID, high five, or do you want a hug? There are different ways of meeting and greeting them at the door. There are still ways to meet and greet them, even though we can't hug. We could do something like namaste or some other way, elbow to elbow. Or if we're virtual, there are ways for us to check in through emojis or just having them sort of share how their day has started, however we want to, but it's important for us to check in and say, how are you? We also need, like I said, to be a good listener. It makes the person who's speaking to you feel loved, cared for, and worthy of being heard. Now, how do we create that community in our classroom? This is the last thing I want to be sure to that you know about. What is a classroom community, and how can we create the environment for respect, acceptance, teamwork, and inclusion? So I found this on Mindset Works, this hierarchy of learner needs. If you look at it sort of looks like Maslow's, or very much looks like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but this one is a little bit different. So we need to fulfill, again, the physiological needs of food, safety, love, and belonging. I added belonging because food, safety, and love really is all about belonging. We need to really key in on that. And if we don't feel we belong, the rest of it doesn't matter. We need to have learning mindsets. So if we have food and safety and love and belonging, we will have a learning mindset. Okay? We'll have a learning mindset. We can use learning strategies and habits that we learn in class. We have those skills to be able to study. We won't panic for a test. I used to have a third grader when I was teaching third grade who used to go into tears and have panic attacks whenever she would have a test. And so we had to work that out because for some reason she didn't feel safe in the classroom taking a test. So we would have her take it one-on-one. Eventually she was able to come back and take the tests with the rest of the class. But it was really important, as we see here, student agency, that we used her student agency to say, what is it that would make you comfortable to take that test? Why are you panicking? And it wasn't enough for me to say, you've studied, you know you'll do well enough, or whatever. That would have just been dismissing her feelings. So I needed to find out what she was feeling, and then to be able to engage her and give her the agency to make a decision about how she needed to take the test. And so she would take it in the counselor's office. And then, like I said, eventually she was able to come back and take it with the rest of the class. And quality instruction, guidance, and experiences are all things for learning readiness, student agency, and having a learning mindset. So if we have the bottom line of belonging, and then we're able to get in the learning mindset, we're also then able to have learning strategies and habits that we learn from our teacher in the class. And it creates quality instruction because then you have all of your students, part of the community, feeling safe, feeling like they belong. So what are learning mindsets? I belong in this learning community. We never want to have a student sitting there thinking that they don't belong in our classroom for whatever the reason, because they're 2 years behind in reading, because they're the only Black student in the class, because they feel different for whatever the reason. We want to make sure that we know our students so well that we know whether they feel comfortable and feel they belong in this learning community. Okay? And the learning community obviously is our classroom in this case. I can change my abilities through effort. That's the growth mindset that everybody talks about. If I make the effort, I can change what I know. I have self-efficacy. I believe that even though I'm not good at math, and we wouldn't want them to say that even, but even though maybe I don't understand long division, or I don't understand the new math, I don't understand calculus, I know that if I make effort, if I persevere, that I have the ability to make that change, and I can learn. I can succeed also in the same line. I can succeed because I have this growth mindset and self-efficacy and self-confidence that I can do this. I have self-belonging. And this work has value and purpose for me. This is really important for student voice and choice. And if we're working with backward design or making sure that students know what the outcomes of a lesson or unit are, we can equate what they're doing, the activities they're doing, the learning that they're doing, the reading they're doing, the writing they're doing, all of those things is related to the fact that it has a purpose for me as the student. If I don't believe that, if I don't see that connection, it's going to be very difficult for me to really embed that learning and have it become part of who I am. What will happen is I'll just memorize it because I know I have a test on it, and then I'll forget it. And we definitely don't want them doing that. So this work has value and purpose for me, is absolutely essential for the growth mindset and for belonging. I need to feel that I am part of this community, I belong in this community, I can succeed in this community, and this community has value and purpose for me, and I understand all of that. Then the student will learn no matter what. It may take some students a little bit longer, but they will learn. So here are some resources for creating a classroom community. It's a Wakelet collection. You can either take a photo of the QR code, or you can hold your camera up to the QR code, or you can use the URL here for the Wakelet. There are a lot of different resources there, and I add to them all the time. You want to make sure that if you're creating regular routines, whether you're online, whether you're hybrid, high flex, or whether you're mask to mask or face to face, you want to have regular routines. Consistency is extremely important. There are some students who need that consistency in order to feel that they know what's coming. All students need it, but for instance, students with ADHD or other disabilities or other learning differences, they need to have those regular routines. And then they know what's expected. Plus, it makes our lives as educators much easier. We want to establish group norms as a team. So, and I know most educators, or a majority probably of educators now, have students involved in making up the norms, but sometimes norms are dictated by our school district, administration, by the teacher. For instance, everybody has to have their camera on, or other types of group norms. Nobody's allowed to speak while I'm speaking. It is much better if we establish group norms as a community. Of course, we're the facilitator of that, and we guide them. So if we think they're missing something, we might make a suggestion. We might give an example. But, you know, students are pretty capable, even the youngest ones are pretty capable of knowing what the rules are and the kinds of things like respect and caring and listening, raising our hand and so forth. And they probably are most likely to come up with those things. We want to form relationships from the very first day. I know that this is not the beginning of the school year in most parts of the world, but we want to make sure that those relationships are healthy relationships, trusting relationships, and to be able to ensure that students feel safe in their environment in the classroom, and also that they feel they can be themselves. Okay, and that goes from the first day. And of course, I greet each student at the door. That door could be the virtual door. It doesn't have to be the physical door. I think it's really important when students come into class that they see you standing at the door, meeting and greeting, rather than sitting at your computer working on something. Of course, some days things come up, or we're not prepared, or something comes up and we need to fix it. That's understandable. Then appointing somebody from the classroom to be that greeter and actually sharing that role is really nice. But making sure that students feel welcomed. We would want to feel welcomed also. It's something that probably we feel we need when we walk into the school. I mean, if we walk into the school and we walk into our classroom and we haven't encountered anybody on the way, or nobody's saying hi to us or smiling at us, obviously we're going to feel kind of down and feel a little bit excluded. So we want to make sure that all of us feel like we belong, and greeting at the door is one of the ways that you can do that. So here is another resource for creating a sense of belonging in our classrooms. This is a compilation of a number of different videos, and I have it public so that you can access this Buncee. It's several different pages, and each one has a video. You can capture this QR code, or you can go to this URL and find these resources. There are a lot of really great videos that I have discovered, which talks about all different ways that we can feel a sense of belonging in our classrooms. And of course, as we talk about social emotional learning is so important and so vital right now, we want to make sure that we have all the resources at hand. So I've made them here available for you. And I just want to say thank you. I'm really excited that I was able to be here today with you, and that we spent this time together. I hope it was beneficial to you, and I hope that you feel that you learned. I, of course, hope that you were able to capture the resources. If not, please reach out to me. I'm at Ilene Winokur on Twitter, and also on Instagram and Facebook. And I do have a website, which is here, Journeys to Belonging with a number 2 at webstarts.com. And it has a lot more resources about self-belonging, personal belonging, and professional belonging for us teachers. And so thank you very much. And again, please reach out if you have any questions.